So, how does all of that with Hugo and Galvax lead to the death of this galaxy?
Will you shut up and listen to the goddamn story? Be patient, you little shit!
Jeez, Iggy, calm down. That was completely uncalled for.
Sorry, Seth. There's been something bugging me lately, and I'm not in the best mood.
What's been bugging you?
Iggy!
That's what's been bugging me.
Iggy, I need your help! Go away!
Who is that?
I am the Super Advanced Robot Guidance Interface #1. You can call me Sargino.
Don't speak to Seth. Get out of here. Scram!
Iggy, please, I need your help. The cartographer and architect are trying to decommission me.
And that's a bad thing because...
For a super advanced robot, you don't sound very advanced.
It's the accent, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Now leave.
Iggy, can't I stay here for a while? Maybe if you show me how to properly run a Galaxy Door, the big guys won't get rid of me.
Absolutely not.
Come on, Iggy, help your brother out.
Wait, you guys are brothers?
Yep, he's AI-0712, and I'm his technical older brother, AI-0711.
I thought older brothers were supposed to seem smarter than the younger brothers.
That's starting to become hurtful.
Sargino is the militaristic side of the architect and cartographer's brains. Every AI is a sliver of their minds.
Okay. But anyway, if Sargino is #1 with AI type, what happened to #2?
Oh, I can answer that. The big guy said something about me being such a big failure that they never wanted to see my AI type rise up again. So they shut down all further creation of militaristic AI.
I don't blame them.
You guys are really starting to hurt my feelings.
Good. Get out of here before I purge you from this Galaxy Door's memory banks.
Oh, come on, Iggy. Please let me stay. Please, 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 please.
Sargino, shut up! I've had enough of you. Leave.
Oh, come on, I could give him a chance. He's begging here.
Don't side with him.
Look, give him a trial period. While I read this next story, if he doesn't shape up and learn how to use a Galaxy Door properly, then you can kick him out.
Yeah, I like that idea.
You two are teaming up on me now? Great. Fine. You can stay, Sargino. But the moment Seth is done reading this next story, you are out. Understand?
Oh, thank you, Iggy. You won't regret this, I promise.
I'm regretting it already.
Why don't you start teaching him what he needs to know? I've got reading I have to do.
Whatever. Let the shit show begin.
Thanks, you guys. You won't regret this at all. Oh, thank you.
Xavier ducked. A flag ensailed over his head and broke against the wall behind him. He turned around to look at the wreckage and frowned.
Hey, that's not very nice!
He scanned the tavern, searching the room for the bartender. He approached the barkeep and calmly slid 4 coins across the bar.
1 elder brew, please.
The barkeep stared at Xavier like he was stupid.
Sorry, friend, but we don't sell that here.
Xavier eyed the man. He pulled out 4 more coins and slid them across the bar. The barkeep chomped down on each coin with his teeth, testing their malleability, and nodded in approval.
Stay right here, I'll be right back.
The barkeep pulled out a sign that read lunch. Another man across the tavern hailed Xavier with a high-pitched whistle. Everyone's head lifted from their business and locked their eyes on Xavier.
Elder brew is meant for the elders.
The man stood up and proudly walked over to Xavier.
Hence the name. And I don't see age on your face.
Xavier chuckled at the muscular man.
Am I supposed to be intimidated by you? If so, you about as intimidating as a dung fly.
Everyone in the tavern inhaled sharply. An older man to Xavier's right spoke quietly to him.
Do you know who you're talking to, youngster?
Xavier looked at the old man, then back at the muscular man in front of him. He eyed him up and then down.
From the looks of it, it looks like a man that's overcompensating for a very tiny blade.
A few chuckles were let out across the bar.
Look, you must have something better to do than vainly threaten me for having a drink.
The bartender returned and handed Xavier his elder brew.
Which is what I intend to do now.
Xavier took a big gulp of his drink and slammed the now empty goblet down on the bar. The muscular man's eyes glowed with anger.
You got balls on you, kid. I'll give you that. My name is Ramses Delphon, and I am this district's champion Rachelon drinker.
Xavier kept his cocky gaze on Ramses. He knew Rachelon was the most potent of alcoholic drinks.
I don't want to make a mess of this bar in front of these people. Getting blood on my clothes isn't really on my agenda.
Ramses threw down a mass of coins on the bar.
But as for the Rachelon, I'm down any day. I challenge you, kid, to a Rachelon drinking contest.
A large man came from behind the bar with a giant keg of Rachelon alcohol.
Like I said, I'm this district's champion drinker, and I intend to keep that honor.
Ramses pointed to the keg.
I can hardly handle a fourth of this barrel here. If you can drink equal to me, I'll let you go quietly. But if you can't, equal or best me,
He cracked his knuckles.
we're gonna have to take this outside.
Xavier examined the keg and nodded in agreement.
Okay, fine. But I go first.
Ramses let out a loud, hearty laugh.
I may decide not to kick your ass even if you lose. You've got spirit, kid. I like that.
He patted Xavier heavy on the back.
You'll be first then. Take your spill from the faucet.
Xavier did as was instructed and drew his first goblet of drink and downed it in the same second. He went for a second draw.
Whoa, slow down there, kid.
The name is Black Rose. Xavier Black Rose.
Ramses nodded approvingly.
Slow down there, Xavier. My turn's next.
He took the same action as Xavier, drawing from the keg's faucet and downing his drink. He finished it with a satisfying sigh.
I love me some drink. Your turn.
Xavier nodded in approval and gazed at the top of the keg, examining its lid. He got on top of the bar and removed the lid, lifted the barrel and quickly guzzled its contents. Ramses stared at him, dumbfounded. Drinking a whole keg of Pirates District Rachelon alcohol was completely unheard of. It would normally take at least 5 people to finish a whole keg, but there Ramses was, watching as one man downed one all on his own. Xavier finished drinking and jumped off the bar.
Your turn.
Ramses was frozen, still in disbelief at what he just saw.
That's what I thought.
Xavier took his elder brew, left the tavern, and made his way to the docks. He started stumbling over his feet. He didn't want to show it, but the moment the contents of the Rachelon touched his lips, he got drunk immediately.
I need to go lay down somewhere.
He arrived at the docks. It was late into the night. Most of the streetlights were out, and the only thing that was illuminating the docks was a lonely lantern hovering above a stack of crates. Xavier took 2 of the crates and set them down beside each other, then laid down to sleep.
Harley's gonna be pissed when she finds me like this. Oh well.
He drifted off into a drunken slumber. Harley rounded a corner of a large shop and stopped, her backpack of supplies and long blonde hair tackling her in the back. She slapped her hand on the side of a building to catch her balance and breathed in and out heavily. She'd been literally running around all day gathering supplies during a pit stop, and she was dog-tired. She was part of an expedition to the land across the sea. Her father was the captain and was extremely particular about being on time. She had her pit stop time completely mapped out and ready for action, but got sidetracked in the midst of collecting her supplies and got lost. She came to a stop and felt around in her baggy pants pocket for her map of the Pirates District, the area that she was currently in. Her eyes grew wide with fear. Her map was missing from her pocket. Small giggling tickled the back of her ears and she spun around, infuriated at what she knew took her map. 2 little children that looked like they hadn't cleaned themselves in weeks were running away from Harley, map in hand. She pushed the tiny annoyances out of her mind. She didn't have time to deal with them. Harley pulled her silver pocket watch out of her inner trench coat and checked the time. Her eyes grew even wider. She was extremely late. She pocketed the watch and scanned her surroundings, looking for something or someone to help her. A smile quickly leapt onto her face. She had luckily landed herself in front of a kiosk that sold town maps of the world.
I need a map of the Pirates District!
She slammed a few coins down on the wooden counter.
Now!
The map vendor backed up, offended. He crossed his arms and threw his nose skyward.
What? What did I do?
You disrespected him,
said an old, polite voice to Harley's right. It was an old man, probably pushing the age of 70, sitting on a worn-down wooden bench beside the kiosk. Harley noticed he had the map she was looking for, a map of the Piratas district.
You slammed your coin down with no regard for his place of work. Not very respectable, if you ask me.
The vendor scrunched his face in agreement and quickly shook his head back and forth.
Does it matter? Respect or not, he's getting my money, either way.
He's got standards for customers. No respect, no sale.
The map vendor nodded in agreement. Harley looked at the vendor, back at the old man, back to the vendor, then at the map in the old man's hands. Harley pondered on her next action. Steal a map from the vendor, or steal a map from the old man? Harley made her decision and snatched the old man's map from his fingertips.
I'll give this back to you later, I promise!
Harley lied. She ran it back around the corner she came from and studied the stolen map. She was 4 blocks from where she needed to be. She cursed at the air, throwing the map to the ground in frustration. She mustered up her remaining stamina and made one last sprint for the docks. A few minutes passed and she could see the crow's nest of the Givento, the ship her father captained and the ship she was late for.
Please, please don't set sail yet, Dad,
she said, mid-sprint.
And I'm almost to you.
She clasped her hand on a pole and swung herself around a final corner. Her eyes lit up at the sight of her father's ship. She squinted her eyes and noticed a man slumped over on a few neatly stacked crates. He had long black hair that concealed most of his face, a black jacket worn over a long-sleeved gray undershirt with black pants and black boots to match. Harley waved her hands in the air, trying to get his attention.
Xavier! Xavier! Tell my dad I'm not late!
She skidded to a halt in front of Xavier, bumping into the crates and knocking him over onto the dock. He grunted and shifted his position on the wooden walkway.
Xavier?
Harley kicked his leg with the tip of her boot.
You alright?
Loud thuds sprang through the dock. Harley could feel the ground rhythmically shaking as if someone were running at her. She turned around, expecting nothing but a dock worker dropping a bunch of supply crates, but was met with something else entirely. The thing was a gigantic man with a tiny head standing 2 stories tall. Harley could see veins pulsing throughout its whole body, flashing neon blue with every step the thing took. Its arms were rippling with muscle, as well as its legs and the rest of its body. Water leaked from rips in its skin where blue tendons could be seen. It came to a stop and fell to a knee, breathing heavily. It raised its head, locked eyes with Harley, and let out a blood-curdling cry.
I want my map back!
Harley's face filled with fear. She didn't expect a Mogus elemental to be on this side of the Piratas district, and she certainly didn't expect to be unlucky enough to steal from one. Mogus elementals were created through an unhealthy addiction to elemental's dust. Whichever element they put into their bodies is the element they harbored control over. Though, after prolonged exposure, the user would lose themselves and feel nothing but anger and resentment. In short, the dust stripped the user of any emotion but rage. The Mogus elemental raised its massive arms and water spewed from its palms, raining down on the now slowly forming circle of people.
You stole from me, girl! I want what is mine!
The Mogus elemental clasped its palms together and locked its fingers. Water rhythmically pulsed from between its hands, covering the ground and dock with its oddly blue, neon color. Further and further it spread, touching the feet of everyone surrounding the elemental. Harley knew better than to let the neon waters touch her. She had studied Mogus elementals during her downtime. Water Mogus elementals had the ability to not only conjure water from thin air, but could also raise its acidity level, making the water turn to fast-acting acid. Harley watched the acid water slowly claim the lives of the surrounding people, chewing away at their feet and dissolving their flesh. The crowd shrieked and danced from the acid water in horror. Harley wanted to save those who were succumbed to the life-taking liquid, but she knew it was too late for them. The water was getting closer and closer to her and Xavier, and he was still knocked out cold.
Xavier! Xavier, wake up! There's a water Mogus elemental! Wake up!
You care for the man, do you?
It started walking slowly to Xavier.
Good. I cared deeply about my map, and you took that from me.
The beast pulled its hands apart and pointed both palms at him.
Since you care deeply for this man, it's only fair that I take him from you.
Harley wanted to just leap on the beast and start hacking away at him with her knives, but she knew if she touched it, she'd be dissolved by the acid shooting its body. All she could do was scream for Xavier. She was useless. She hated feeling useless.
Xavier, wake up! Wake up!
The acid-covered beast started to chant, building up spheres of blue, sloshy acid water on its palms. Bigger and bigger the spheres grew, until they touched and joined together, forming a sphere of acid water bigger than Harley and Xavier combined. It was getting too big and Harley had no choice but to run. She couldn't save Xavier, and hated that, but she could save herself. Harley jumped from the safety of the crates and into the water beneath the dock. She cried out Xavier's name in vain, but she knew there was nothing she could do. She looked up and watched as the beast brought down the sphere like a mighty hammer. The acid water splashed everywhere. On the deck, on the ship docked at the deck, even in the water Harley was in. She frantically swam to shore to get a look at the fate her friend had succumbed to. She made her way to the beginning of the dock and darted across the wooden beams, ignoring the fact that they were covered in acid water. She skidded to a hole behind the beast when she realized she wasn't being eaten alive. The acid water on the deck had disappeared. Harley could only assume the beast had to use all of the water it could to form its giant sphere. That's why the water was gone from the deck. The Mogus elemental was unmoving. It wasn't breathing, it wasn't growling, it wasn't leaking water. It just stood there, staying very still. She circled the beast to get a look at why it was frozen. All but Xavier, save the dock, was dissolved away. He was completely unscathed. More and more water spewed onto the deck, overflowing and spilling into the waters below with a neon-colored menace. The water's fluorescent color began to pulse white, pulsing faster and faster while the Mogus elemental started chanting. The deck-run Xavier and his crates started dissolving like snow on a hot day, collapsing under the insane weight of the elemental. The deck crashed into the water beneath it, waking Xavier from his drunken slumber. He rolled in the shallow water, grabbing at his head and groaning in pain.
Too much. I drank too much.
You what?
Xavier got his eyes working and watched as an angry Harley came splashing towards him.
You were out drinking last night? The night before we set sail? What in the world do you think my dad is going to think of you mindless dolt?
He waved his hands at her, signaling her to quiet down.
Harley, please, not now.
Don't Harley please me, you stupid idiot! You deserve all that you have coming to you!
Harley smacked Xavier across the face with a loud thwack. Xavier reeled backwards in pain.
Harley, you don't understand. I need to...
She smacked him again.
No! You don't need to do anything! You've already done enough! Getting drunk and hung over the night before we set sail and meet a new crew? I can't believe you!
A roar bellowed out from Xavier and Harley's right. The Mogus elemental had two massive fists of water orbiting its steel-like, muscular arms like planets to a sun. The Mogus charged at Xavier, full speed. Xavier had tried shaking his head free of Harley's nagging and the charging elemental, but neither were budging. He started to visibly shake, summoning up all the energy he had into his right arm.
You are giving me a headache!
He swung at the elemental and made contact just below its left eye, crushing its skull and sending a giant fluorescent blue snake flying from the open wound. Harley stood in place, dumbfounded.
Xavier, did you just...
I think I punched the elemental right out of him. Seems like it.
But you crushed his skull.
Serves him right for not shutting up. Besides, you people seriously need to stop relying on me for everything.
Xavier rolled his eyes and walked over to the seemingly dead old man and put a hand on the good portion of his head.
Also, he isn't dead.
Yellow light shimmered to existence from his palm. The old man's skull started to reform, pieces returning to their original places. The old man's eyes creeped open.
See, he's alive. Just fainted.
Xavier spun on one heel and made his way to the Gavento. Harley followed close by.
Are you not going to explain yourself? You have to meet the new crew today and you're hungover. Or drunk. Or both.
Xavier waved her off and opened a hatch that led to the lower decks of the ship.
Yeah, probably a little bit of both. I never agreed to meet the new crew anyway, Harley. You obviously don't remember the part where I never wrote you back about meeting them.
Xavier started down the hatch ladder. Harley put a foot on Xavier's hand, trapping him on the ladder.
I beg to differ, Xavier. I've got your response right here. It's even got your family crest.
Harley pulled out a water-stained piece of paper with a black rose printed on one side. Xavier scrunched his eyebrows, pushed Harley's foot away, and crawled out of the hatch.
Let me see that.
Xavier snatched the paper from Harley's hands. He examined it, staring deeply at the black rose.
I must have been drunk or too tired to think. Maybe both. So this agreement doesn't count.
He gave the paper back to Harley.
Sorry, Harley.
Are you serious?
Yep, as serious as a Quillcat attack.
Xavier hopped off the ladder and scanned the wooden room around it. It had been a while since Xavier had been on the Gavento. The back and forth rocking of the ship had still made it hard at first to maneuver. The rotting barrels of gunpowder were still in the corner of the lower deck, being turned into thick liquid by the seawater splashing through the hull. The bunks were still the same thick, bulky mattresses that he'd had to bear with on his last trip. Everything was the same except for the old crew, which seemed was completely replaced.
Anyone down here?
Silence.
Finally. Sweet, sweet silence.
He hopped onto one of the bulky mattresses. His eyelids began to droop until they closed shut. Heavy, but quiet footsteps pattered through the deck. Xavier stirred in his sleep. The footsteps got heavier and louder with every passing second. Not a minute later, and Xavier was woken by 3 fat men circling Xavier's bunk.
You think he can hear us?
Well, I don't know. Maybe he's still asleep.
He just put his head down.
What if we poke him a bit in the face?
Well, then you'll wake him up.
He's on my bunk anyways, Bip. I want to sleep.
He's a guest on this ship, Bob. I say let him rest.
What you say, Boop? Shall we wake him?
Bip, Bop, and Boop stared at Xavier's wide-eyed, angry face.
I'll give all 3 of you 2 seconds to go back up that hatch and let me sleep before you lose the last speck of brain power you all share.
They jumped back, startled. The ugly fat trio tried scrambling up the ladder but fell backwards onto the deck, flailing over one another, trying to get up. Xavier watched, confused at the mess of people trying to get to their feet. He'd seen his fair share of strange things during his travels, but never in his days had he ever seen a group of men as ugly as these 3. Each of them had their own fair share of disgusting on their face. Bip had pink and purple warts all over his nose, covering his nostrils, forcing him to breathe like a mouth breather. Bop had gray, long hair growing from every hole in his head. Even his lips had hair growing off of them. Boop was the most normal looking, aside from his eyeliner, red lips, and neatly trimmed mustache.
And who the hell are you idiots anyway?
I'm Bip.
I'm Bob.
And I'm Boop. We came down here to take a quick nap when we found you. Then we started talking to each other. Then you woke up and started talking to us. Then we explained who we were, and then...
Shut up. Shut up, no. No more talking. Just answer me and leave. Where can I find Blazer?
He's either in his quarters or somewhere around the ship. Find Morshak. She'll be able to tell you where he is.
Good. Thank you. Now back to what I said earlier.
1.
Scared of Xavier getting to 2, Bip, Bop, and Boop jumped out of their socks and sped up the hatch to the upper deck of the ship. Xavier hopped off of Bop's bunk and made his way up the same way to the uppermost deck of the ship. He looked around and spotted Victor swabbing the deck with a messy mop.
Hey, do you know where I can find Blazer or the head crewman Marshak?
Victor stopped mopping and leisurely eyed Xavier. Xavier looked the man up and down. He was covered in head to toe in dirty clothes. It looked like he hadn't bathed in years. His hair was a messy bun so tangled and greasy that it made the brown, filth-soaked mop he was using look clean. His face was clean-shaven and he wore a pair of raggedy gloves. There was a long pause before Victor spoke.
I'm not sure where they are at the moment, but I can show you where my head crewman is if you're picking up what I'm putting down.
Victor winked and nudged Xavier in the shoulder, leaving a grease stain. Xavier cringed and wiped off the grime. He wanted someone less gross to talk to.
That depends. Do you want it cut off and thrown into the ocean?
Victor pulled his head back in surprise. He didn't expect that, but oddly, he liked it.
Hey, baby. Whatever you're into, I like it rough as well.
Victor nudged Xavier in the shoulder once more.
Victor! Quit bothering the man and get back to the kitchen. Food isn't gonna cook itself.
I'm not sure I want to eat anything he handles.
Victor waved off Xavier and Trank approached Xavier with the hand open for a handshake. Finally, someone Xavier could be civil with. Trank had an extremely friendly tone to his voice, almost comforting. He sported a trench coat with a strap going from his left shoulder down to his right hip. Along the strap were an assortment of pistols, each one a different design. He was attractively muscular, with brown hair and brown eyes. Dennis, on Trank's left, wore a tight-fitting, snazzy shirt with a matching brown do-rag. He had dark skin with light blue eyes and a black goatee. Scubus sat there with a smirk to his face on Trank's right, leaned up against the stairway leading to the helm. His hair was nice and slicked back but teased in the front, adding 2 inches to his height. He wore a puffy pirate shirt with a dark green vest over it. His eyes were silver with hints of sky blue radiating from his pupils.
The name is Trank. I handle the munitions on this vessel. Here behind me is Dennis and Scubus. Scubus has been here for a while now, but Dennis and I are new to the Gavento.
That would explain why I haven't seen you two on this ship before. In fact, most of the crew seems to be new, and there's not many of you.
Yeah, there's not but 10 of us on this ship.
Xavier pulled his head back in surprise.
Only 10? Last time I was here, there were well over 24 men working this vessel.
We may be a skeleton crew of 10, but we run it like we're 30. The Gavento's in good hands, I can assure you.
We'll see how well you can run this ship when we set sail then. Where can I find Captain Blazer? I need to speak with him about, sleeping arrangements.
Marshak should know.
Alright, good. Where can I find her?
Check the secondary crow's nest. She should be up there.
Xavier scanned the mass of the ship until he found a secondary crow's nest near 60 feet into the air, held in place by a mass of ropes and ladders.
I really don't want to climb all the way up there, especially with a half-assed crew like this on board and I'm hungover. But I suppose there's no other way around it, is there?
He made his way up the ladder to the secondary crow's nest and pulled himself over the side and landed on the ground with a flop. He stood up and came face to face with yet another crew member, Varnu. She had long brown hair held in place with a pair of nails at the back of her head. She wore a sage green vest with a black undershirt and a sash full of different assortments of powders and dusts, most likely used for hasty escapes. Over all of that, she sported a dark hooded trench coat. Her weapon set consisted of small knives and blow darts. Varnu was the strong, occasionally silent type. Xavier could tell that just by looking at her.
What are you doing in my crow's nest?
Mind your tongue. I'm looking for Marcia.
Varnu pointed a thumb backwards.
She's in the primary crow's nest near the nose of the ship.
So this is how Mario feels.
What was that?
What was what?
I've got my eye on you.
Xavier started his way back down the ladder, but was stopped by Varnu's hand on the collar of his shirt.
Don't ruin the primary crow's nest. It's my favorite of the two. If I find out you damaged it, we're going to have an issue. Understand?
Xavier put on a quick, sarcastic smile.
Whatever you say.
He got to the bottom of the mast and was once again met with another crew member, Dennis, who promptly tapped him on the shoulder to gain his attention.
What? What now? What could you possibly want from me now? I just want to find Blazer so I can get some sleep.
Dennis let a long pause occur before speaking.
Xavier, can you sing?
Can I what?
I said, can you sing?
Xavier looked back and forth from Trank to Scubus behind Dennis, very confused.
Dennis starts all the crew's sea shanties. He likes it best when he's surrounded by others that can sing. You might as well answer his question, because he won't stop until he gets his answer.
Xavier sighed. He was surrounded by freaks.
Oh my god, I'm surrounded by freaks. No, I'm not a little girl. I don't sing. Now leave me alone.
Oh, Tails, why did you say that?
Here we go.
Dennis grew a wide grin across his face and his eyes lit up like fireballs. He loved to sing. Any song, any verse, any sea shanty, he knew it. And he especially loved it when others didn't sing, so he could sing for himself.
No worries, friend. I can sing for you.
Oh god, no. Please don't.
What do we do with a drunken sailor like Xavier, boys?
I will pay you to stop right now.
From every orifice of the ship, every pirate joined in song about Xavier.
Way, hey, and up she rises. Way, hey, and up she rises. Way, hey, and up she rises early in the morning.
Xavier covered his ears in an attempt to escape the horrific singing, but all was in vain. He quickly ran to the primary mast and scaled it in seconds. Marshak turned around to face Xavier just as he was pulling himself over the side of the crow's nest.
I see the new crew has taken a liking to you, Xavier.
The feeling is not mute.
Marshak turned back around and leaned on the crow's nest.
They grow on you once you get to know them. You should really take the time to go around and learn who everyone is once you're done talking with Captain Blazer about whatever it is you want to talk about.
Xavier furrowed his brow in surprise.
How did you know I wanted to talk to Captain Blazer?
You'd be surprised what you can hear over the crow's nest.
Xavier nodded.
I'll keep that in mind. So what happened to the original crew anyway, and why are they replaced by these things?
He pointed to Bip, Bop, and Boop. Marshak's face went from relaxed to serious.
They all died. We were on an expedition that went south fast. The island we were on had very dangerous natives. There were thousands of them. We would have been successful if we hadn't been overrun. The only ones that made it out were myself, Scubus, Valentus, and Captain Blazer. We quickly put together a worthy ship with a skeleton crew so the Givento could continue sailing.
Oh wow, I'm sorry for your loss.
Marshak smiled.
Oh, don't be. That's life. Sometimes it bites where it hurts.
If I wasn't already hungover, I'd buy you and Blazer a round of drinks to honor the original crew.
They both laughed at Xavier's statement. At least someone wasn't crazy on the ship.
Now, do you know where I can find Blazer?
Why?
Xavier pulled his head back in surprise.
Sorry. With Blazer being one of the last pirate captains, there are a lot of people trying to take him out, so I'm always on guard. Pirate captains are being hunted down. The Piratus District is the only safe place for pirates. You can't sail with one of the world's few remaining pirate captains and expect it to be peaceful. Blazer should be back at his quarters now. I take it you're looking to use his bunk again?
Yep, sleeping on that thing has been the best sleep I've ever had on this ship.
I hear that. I've slept on it myself. She's a beauty. Blazer tells me it's a type of feather that's put in the pillow that gives the user great sleep.
I don't want to know why you were in his bed, but whatever it is, I'm gonna use it tonight before we set sail. Good talking to you, Marshak.
The same to you.
Xavier slid down the ladder of the crow's nest and landed on what felt like a person. He looked down to see Valentus under his feet.
Can I help you?
Yeah, you could start by getting off my chest.
Maybe in a minute.
Xavier stepped backwards and released Valentus from his pinned state. He brushed off his clothes and thanked Xavier. Xavier's eyes grew wide. He felt around his clothes until he landed on a spot that had something in it. Had something in it. Xavier turned to Valentus with an open hand.
Hand it back, or I'll cut yours off. I'm not sure how you managed to steal from me of all people, but you did. Hooray. Now give my money back. I should have stepped down much harder when I had the chance.
Valentus cockily took a bag of coins from his pocket and tossed it to Xavier.
You've got a good eye, Xavier. I think I'll like you on this trip.
You and that disgusting chef stay away from me.
He made his way into the captain's quarters and closed the door behind him.
Anyone in here? Finally, silence. It's about time I laid down.
Xavier scanned the room for Blazer's bed. He found it and made his way over to the soft, cloud-like embrace. He hopped up and let his heavy eyelids shut closed. He listened to the sounds of sloshing water on the hull of his ship. He soaked up the ambience and let him lull him to a deep sleep.
Xavier. Xavier. Oh, Xavier.
Blazer stood right smack in front of Xavier's face, whispering into his nose.
Xavier.
Xavier felt the tickle of Blazer's breath on his nostrils. He wiggled his nose, trying to blow away the breath on his face, but did it to no avail. Blazer raised his hand with a finger and pointed it forward at Xavier's nose. Xavier snatched his hand.
Unless you want a hook for a hand, I wouldn't do that. And for God's sake, do something about your breath.
I see you're in no good mood. What troubles you, friend?
I'm hungover and no one will leave me the hell alone long enough to let me sleep. So if you don't mind, I need some sleep before I start throwing people overboard.
Blazer nodded approvingly.
I understand. I'll leave you be for now. I'd say you could use my bunk, but it seems you've already taken it. You can meet the crew tomorrow. I'll tell them not to disturb the captain's quarters until tomorrow morning. Sleep well, my friend.
Thanks. I'll wake up. Eventually.
Xavier awoke and snapped his eyes open and shook his head back and forth, testing for his headache. Nothing. His head was in perfect condition. He stretched his arms and legs with a relaxing sigh.
Now that I'm rested, I suppose I should meet the crew.
Xavier walked over to the doors of Blazer's quarters when he noticed a strange-looking drawing on his center table. It was meticulous in design, consisting of multiple parts and layers of drawings upon drawings, making it for what looked like an oversized pistol. Xavier picked up the drawing and held them against the morning light that was fading in from the windows of Blazer's cabin.
Hey, Blazer. Come here for a sec.
Blazer popped his head into his cabin.
Ah, Xavier, what do you need?
What's this design for? It looks interesting.
Why, thank you. It's a work in progress. It's a prototype for a hand cannon.
A hand cannon?
Of course.
Holy shit, I'd like to get my hands on one of those.
Blazer took the drawings from Xavier's hands and placed them back on the center table.
I plan to revolutionize the way we remaining pirates fight. Once I have all the pieces I need, I can finish the cannon. Which is actually what I need your help with.
Can I have a copy of these designs when everything's finished?
Of course! Walk with me.
Blazer and Xavier both made their way out of his cabin onto the deck of the ship. It was next to barren on the upper deck of the ship. With only 13 people aboard the Givento, it was mostly quiet. Xavier closed his eyes and took in the soft ambient sounds made by the seawater splashing up against the sides of the boat. The sunlight ringing off the shiny dinner bell and the small chatter of the minute crew in the ship. He finally felt relaxed. Xavier was a Riviere shaman, and what came with being a Riviere shaman was a lot of stress. From birth, Xavier was molded to be a bodyguard of the royal security family, more specifically, the king's son. But Xavier wasn't just a bodyguard, he was an advisor, a shaman. He was a friend. But being all of that was taxing. It put a lot of stress on him that, in his opinion, was unneeded. Luckily for him, Galvax thought so as well. So he convinced the king to give Xavier some downtime. So Xavier chose to spend it at the land across the sea. That's why he was on Blazer's ship in the first place, to get to said land.
Everyone gather round. I've got a mission for the lot of you.
The 10 crew of the Givento and Harley grouped at the primary mast of the ship.
This is but a small mission, but an important one. You all know of the weapon I'm designing, and there are a few parts that I don't have. But I do know of someone who does have them. You all know what that entails.
Valentis cockily made his way to the center of the circle.
It means you'll need a master thief like myself to steal said item. Don't worry, guys, I can take on this mission on my own.
Actually, Valentis, you'll be sitting this one out. I want Boop, Vanu, and Xavier to go.
Valentis' face went from cocky to disappointed in a split second. Thieving was his MO. If someone needed something stolen, Valentis saw it as his birthright to steal said item, and being shut down like Blazer just did to him was, in Valentis' eyes, a letdown.
Oh, come on, really? You haven't sent me out on a mission to steal anything in like 4 months! This is so not fair to me!
Ah, Valentis, you will have your chance in the limelight. Don't let your ego get to you. I want the 3 I've chosen to go. Don't question my authority, young man.
Valentis childishly crossed his arms and backed out of the center of the circle.
Aye, aye, Captain.
He sighed heavily and looked out to sea. He could see a storm coming in from the east. Like clockwork, just as Valentis spotted the storm, rain began to fall. He looked up and got pelted in the face with tiny drops of wet, cold deluge.
A storm is brewing, Captain. It could hide our approach to the place where this item you want will be.
Good thinking, Marshak. Batten down the hatches, men. We're setting sail.
All of the crew went to work at their respective stations. Blazer took the helm. Marshak stood by his side and everyone went into action preparing the sails aside from Varnu, who went up to her favorite crow's nest. She looked out to sea and studied the clouds. They weren't ordinary clouds. They were moving. Almost as if they were fighting each other. In fact, that's exactly what Varnu could see. Two giants the size of two hurricanes were amongst the clouds, battling it out.
Captain! This isn't an ordinary storm. This is an elemental storm. We've got to set sail now before we get caught in the flight.
Right then, you heard Varnu. Move!
Everyone went to work readying the ship. A few hours later, and they arrived at an oversized fortress. It was late into the night, and the storm was still in the progress of raining over the Givento. Xavier looked out at the castle before them. It was lit up like a Christmas tree in the night, shining brilliantly against the starry night sky.
Boop, Varnu, I'm ready to go. Get your asses moving or I'm leaving you behind.
Blazer walked up behind the three.
I want you three to hop in the dinghy and make your approach quiet. Better you go in quiet and get out without making a scene. And Xavier, there's absolutely no killing on this mission. I don't want to start something we don't intend to finish.
I can't make any promises.
No killing. You know the rules. Now hop in the dinghy.
Why is it called a dinghy anyway? I'm pretty sure I could think of a million better names for it.
What?
Like seriously, it just sounds stupid. Dinghy. What moron named it a dinghy?
Blazer sighed and moved on with the conversation.
Anyway, let's make this mission quick, in and out. I don't want any lollygagging on this. I'll see you three shortly.
Xavier, Varnu, and Boop climbed into the dinghy and cut the rope holding it to the side of the ship. The boat fell and crashed into the water. The three occupants put out their respective oars and started paddling their way to the fortress. About 30 minutes later, and they landed ashore on the beach of the castle.
Alright, this is it. Everyone out to the dinghy. Let's find us some gun materials.
Alright, hold on. Before we get into anything, I've got to ask. Where the hell did you guys come from and how did you land on the Givento?
Unless Captain Kenward orders me to, I'm not telling you a thing about me. I keep my personal life personal.
Well, fine then. Probably not worth my time anyway.
Ah, don't mind old Varnu. She's a mystery to everyone on the ship. I can tell you how I landed on Givento. No problem. My brothers, Bit and Bop, were born in a brothel called the Winking Oyster. We all have the same father, but different mothers. Our mothers served as the escorts for the brothel, while our father owned the place. Every month he'd pick up his favourite escort and give him a raise in a bedroom. Anyway, about a month ago the captain came into the brothel and said he was looking for a few men for a skeleton crew, and here we are.
And I'm assuming you got your obvious good looks from your father?
Nah, our dad tells us we all take after our mothers.
Xavier's face filled with disgust as he thought back to the first time he saw the three Boomis brothers with their disgusting faces and their fat, smelly bodies. Xavier shuddered.
That poor, poor man. How drunk did he have to be to bed such beasts? Ugh.
Boop, Varnu, and Xavier made their way to the castle gates and scanned the front of the structure, trying to find a good way around the front doors.
Alright, we need a way in. Look for anything that could serve as an opening.
They searched, but couldn't find a proper way in.
I'm not seeing a good way to enter, Xavier. I say we make a way in.
A forced entry could cause quite a ruckus. We don't want to make any more trouble than we're probably going to be getting into.
Hang on a second. I think I see a way in. A window about 3 stories up the column on the left of the front doors. It's small, but I think we can make it if we throw a rope high enough.
What if someone else sees us? Someone should stay down here in case the guards outside the castle need a distraction.
I can do that. I don't feel like climbing with you two.
Fine. I like Boop better anyway. Can't believe I just said that.
She's always like that. You get used to it.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Xavier pulled a rope out from behind him and tied a metal claw to one end, making a makeshift grappling hook. Boop stared at the metal object, confused.
Where did you pull that one from?
From behind me! Weren't you paying attention?
Boop circled Xavier and stopped back at his starting point.
Yeah, but where from?
Xavier held both hands in front of Boop's face and wiggled his fingers.
Magic!
Xavier spun the grappling hook out beside him, building its momentum. He let it go at the top of its spin and soared into the air and landed inside the window. Once secure, he gave the rope a few tugs, testing its weight. Once sure it would be secure enough, Xavier gave the rope to Boop and pointed to the window.
After you, Boop, because if this rope can hold you, it can hold anything.
Why, thank you, Xavier.
Boop grabbed the rope and tested its security. Not sure of himself, Boop began his slow but steady ascent up the rope. He made it about halfway up before losing energy.
Xavier?
What's up, buddy?
Would this be a bad time to tell you that I was stuck?
Wait, what?
Yeah, I can't go any higher. My arms are tired.
Are you serious? You can't lug your fat body 4 feet higher? You're almost there.
I need your help. One of you get up here and push me.
Varnu lifted her hands in protest.
Don't even think of asking me to do that. I've been behind the Boomis brothers' hind end one too many times.
Why?
Boop broke out in immature laughter.
They find it funny to fart in the faces of the closest person. Somehow it's been me every single time.
If you even think about doing that to me, I'll shove a cannon so far up your ass, you'll be known as Broadside Boop.
Boop's grip slipped and he plummeted, falling 3 feet before squeezing himself to a stop.
Guys, I'm scared.
Fine. Hold on, Boop. I'm coming.
Xavier took hold of the rope inside. He did not want to do this. He quickly ascended the grapple until he was directly underneath Boop.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure what to do now.
Please don't say that. I'm already scared enough as it is.
Varnu, you got any ideas?
Silence.
Varnu?
Xavier looked down at Varnu, who was incapacitated with silent laughter. She was laughing so hard that the only sound she made were slight, nearly inaudible wheezes.
I'm surrounded by idiots. Okay, Boop, listen up. This is gonna feel awkward, but it's the only way we're gonna get you up this rope.
Xavier slowly rose up the rope until his shoulder was touching Boop's butt. Xavier started to push his way up, lifting Boop higher and higher until he came within reach of the window.
Can you pull yourself in yet?
Yeah, I could almost reach the window. Just a little farther.
Boop, I don't think I've got a little further in me. You might not have noticed, but your heavy ass isn't the easiest thing to move.
It's something I'm working on. Sod off.
Alright then, I'll talk to Blazer about helping you out by halving your rations then. Because you weigh a ton. Oh, and my hands are slipping, so you'd better hurry up.
Boop stretched his hands upwards and grabbed hold onto the ledge of the window.
Okay, I've got a grip on the window.
Oh, thank goodness.
Boop pulled himself up into the window after a moment of struggling to wedge himself through, and Xavier followed right after. Panting and out of breath, Xavier fell to the castle floor.
I swear, if I'm ever unfortunate enough to do that again, I will hurt you, Boop.
Boop didn't respond.
Boop?
Xavier looked up to Boop and furrowed his brow. He was frozen and looked terrified.
What now?
Xavier got up and turned around to see the source of Boop's fear, and that fear stilled in Xavier. In front of them was a beast bigger than the two of them combined. Its skin was dark gray and covered in red goo that looked like blood. Its legs were rock hard like stone. In fact, that's what it was. Upon further investigation, the creature before them was completely made of stone. Its head was that of a bull with horns the size of a man. Its tail came to a rounded point, covered in spikes. It stared into Xavier's eyes with nothing but hatred. It breathed out heavily, and Xavier was hit in the face with a bright yellow fluid that felt like thick, soupy muck.
Xavier, don't move a muscle. I've dealt with something like this before. It's called a jackball, and their sight is based off of movement. Stay still, and it shouldn't be able to see you.
Then why is it staring me in the face?
Good point. I really have no idea. You'd better have a plan, because I'm too scared to think of one.
Yeah, I have an idea. You won't like it, because it involves you being bait.
Seriously?
That's all I've got. Jackballs are made of stone, right?
Yeah.
Then all we need to do is smash this son of a bitch and it'll be dead. Boop, I need you to run around as much as you can. Draw its attention. I'm going to retrieve what we came here for, and I'll be right back. Trust me.
You can't just leave me here. There's no way I'll be able to fight this thing on my own.
5 minutes. Give or take, that's all I need. I have faith in you, Boop. Bye.
Xavier took off under the Jackbull, sprinting as fast as he could through the halls of the castle they were in. The Jackbull spun around wicked quick, following Xavier down the hallway. Boop jumped into action, started making all kinds of noise to attract the creature.
Don't just make noise, run around or something.
Oh, that's right.
This is not the time to be forgetting things like that.
Boop ran to Xavier's aid, jumping in front of the stone beast. He skidded to a hole and pulled twin pistols out of his pockets.
How about a little firepower?
Boop opened fire on the beast. It reeled back in pain and swiped at Boop with its monstrous claws. Boop jumped back, dodging the sharp objects by mere millimeters. Boop opened fire again, sending round after round into the Jackbull's face. It shrieked and charged at Boop once more, its mouth wide open for a bite. Boop lunged forward, missing its jaw and slid underneath the beast, and saw a weak point. Its underbelly was cracked, probably from a previous battle. Boop didn't care what it was from, it was a weak point and he was going to exploit it. Boop shot his pistols into the crack and opened a hole, unveiling the beast's heart. Knowing its weak point was open, the Jackbull launched itself through the window of the castle and landed a few yards in front of the dinghy, sending debris flying out in Varnu's direction. She sidestepped and avoided the stone just in time.
Where the hell did the Jackbull come from?
It was in the room with us when we got inside. Xavier will be back to help us in 5 minutes. He promised.
He left you with this thing? What was he thinking?
I'm not sure, but I'm positive he meant well.
That idiot. Fine, whatever. We'll just have to fight this thing ourselves. Get down here.
I'm not exactly sure how to get down, Varnu.
Varnu growled and set back.
Then I guess it's me and you then, beast.
Left, right, left, right, left, right. Xavier pumped his legs as fast as he could through every corridor, following his gut on where to go.
Come on, it's gotta be here somewhere.
He skidded to a hole in front of a large set of iron double doors.
This might be it. Only one way to find out.
He kicked open the double doors and they swung inward, crashing loudly on the walls behind them. 2 heavily armored guards standing on the other side of the doorway spun around to face Xavier.
Shit.
It seems we have an intruder, Jin. It seems we do, Mikro. Brother, why don't we introduce ourselves? We are Mikro and Jin, the twin knights. Our faces will be the last ones you'll ever see.
The guards charged, weapons out ready for a fight. Xavier unsheathed his sword and prepared for battle. Mikro swung high, aiming for Xavier's head. Xavier brought his sword to bear, blocking the attack. Jin circled his flare in the air above his head, building up momentum for an assault. Xavier sidestepped and let Mikro's blade fall forward, and Xavier stabbed out, aiming for Mikro's chest. Mikro stepped back and let his brother come forward. Jin swung his flail at Xavier, sending the spike-covered mass soaring in the air. Xavier deflected the ball with his sword, shattering the blade. Weaponless and with no other option, Xavier bravely sprinted toward the twin knights. Both brothers attempted to strike Xavier, but both missed as he slid on his knees right past them. Xavier jumped to his feet and grabbed the round metal sphere they had set out to steal. He pocketed the heavy object and turned around to face his foes.
You guys missed.
Mikro and Jin thrusted themselves forward at Xavier, weapons ready. Jin swung his flail. Xavier caught the chain and pulled with all of his might, disarming Jin of his weapon. Xavier swung the weapon around and scored an attack on Jin's helmet, crushing the metal. He fell to the ground, blood spewing from the eye holes in his helmet.
Jin, no!
You are definitely not getting up from that one.
Mikro ran to his fallen brother, dropping his weapon. Xavier took the opportunity and swept the blade from the ground, and he ran back down the corridor he came, and back to the window he'd previously entered. He called down to Boop and Varnu below.
Told you I'd be back! Are you guys alright?
Never better.
Get your ass down here and help us!
Boop and Varnu were both worn out and beaten, but not defeated. The Jackbull had chunks missing from its body where stone used to be. Xavier looked closer and realized that it now had cracks all along its spine, probably from its apparent fall out the window.
I need you guys to keep it right where it is. I'm gonna take this thing out. Just trust me on this.
Xavier backed up and pumped his legs as fast as he could at the window. He jumped and pointed his new sword downward. He landed on the beast, piercing its stone skin with the sword. It reeled back in pain, Screeching at the top of its lungs, it staggered backwards and began to fall. Xavier tried pulling his sword out of the creature's back, but it was stuck.
The sword isn't worth it. Just come down from there.
Xavier pulled and finally the sword broke free. Black blood gushed from the wound. Xavier hit his mark, the beast's heart. He jumped back from the jackbull and landed his feet safely on the ground. The monster was right on top of Xavier. If he didn't move in that second, he was going to be crushed. Xavier sidestepped just in the nick of time. The jackbull fell to the ground and shattered into a million pieces.
That was fun, wasn't it?
Boop and Varnu stared at Xavier, both red in the face with anger.
What?
You know what?
Xavier looked to Varnu.
Varnu, do you know what he's talking about?
I've got a slight idea, yeah.
Great, what is it?
You left me with that jackball, you dick.
I told you I'd be right back.
Not the point. I could have died.
You didn't die. You didn't even get one scratch on that pudgy little belly of yours. You're fine.
Whatever. Let's get back to the dinghy.
Varnu and Boop both turned their backs to Xavier and made their way to the dinghy.
We're all alive, and I retrieved what we were after. As long as Harley doesn't bitch at me for leaving you two, everything will be fine and dandy.
Varnu and Boop both exchanged glances and nodded in agreement.
Oh, please don't tell Harley. I'd rather not deal with that tonight.
Too late.
Our minds have been made up.
I could kill you both right now and say it was the jackbull.
They all boarded the dinghy back to the Givento. Xavier was dreading going back to the ship. He knew Boop and Varnu were going to get back at him for leaving them and tell Harley it happened. He planned on sneaking around her and hiding in the captain's cabin until she calmed down. She had a hot temper and he hated that.
Hey Boop, Varnu, any chance you guys could not, tell Harley I left you guys? I'd really appreciate it.
Not a chance.
Great.
Arriving back at the ship, Xavier tiptoed his way around the perimeter of the ship, strategically avoiding the places he knew Harley would normally be around. He was a mere 10 feet from the captain's cabin when he heard Harley yell from behind him.
He what?
Xavier bolted into the captain's cabin and slammed the door shut behind him. He looked around frantically, trying to find an object to brace against the door. He could easily take down Harley in a fight. He knew that. But when it came to her spurts of anger, he wanted no part of it.
Xavier, open this door right now!
Harley, please calm down. I only left them alone for 5 minutes. Stop. It couldn't have been any longer than that. Besides, it was just a jackbull. They had to fight, no big deal.
Harley's rage only grew more at that statement. Boop and Varnu didn't mention the jackbull. All they told her was that Xavier left them during a fight, not what he left them with.
A jackbull?
They didn't tell you about the jackbull, did they?
They certainly did not, but now that I know, this won't end well for you.
That's only if you can catch me!
A few seconds passed and the pounding stopped. Xavier put his ear to the door and listened quietly for Harley stomping off to cool down, but didn't hear a thing.
Harley? Harley, are you...
Harley kicked in the door with all of her might and sent Xavier flying backwards into the center table of the room. He landed face up. Harley stormed in, red in the face with anger.
First, you get drunk before meeting the new crew. Then you're rude to everyone on the boat while you first meet them. Now I'm being told you left them alone with a jackbull. This trip will not be pleasant for you, Xavier Blackrose.
Hey, look, in my defense, I was retrieving the object your dad sent us there for.
Xavier pulled the metal ball out of his pocket.
See?
I could care less about why you did it. Ugh, you're unbelievable.
She stomped out of the room. Blazer entered the room laughing.
I see Harley heard about what you did back at the castle. Did you get the sphere?
Xavier threw the heavy object to Blazer. He caught it and held it at eye level, examining the shiny ball.
Good work, Xavier. How quickly were you able to retrieve it? The Twin Knights must have given you a lot of trouble. I've seen Micro and Jin fight up close when I tried to get the sphere myself once. They aren't easy to put down without killing.
Yeah, about that. I killed Jin and left Micro crying on the floor holding his dead brother. It wasn't entirely my fault, but I do take the blame.
Xavier! I specifically told you not to kill anyone for this very reason. Micro isn't going to just let us go. He will hunt you down and make an attempt on your life, and he won't be beaten as easily as his brother was.
I'm not too worried about it.
Just keep an eye open. With Jin dead, Mikro's all by himself, so he's a man with nothing to lose. Therefore, he's very dangerous.
Prefer to have both my eyes open. It's easier to see that way.
Anyway, there's one more retrieval mission that I need your help with. It'll just be you and me on this one. There's one more piece of material I need to finish the hand cannon.
Alright, sounds good. When do you want to leave?
Immediately. It's getting dark, and my eyes aren't as good as they used to be.
Sounds like someone's getting old.
Xavier, I'm late into my 5th decade. Of course I'm sounding old. Now come on, let's get to the dinghy.
Again, there has to be a better name than dinghy.
Blazer sighed. They made their way to the dinghy and dropped into the sea.
Oh, I've been meaning to ask. Where's Mara? I haven't seen her around the ship at all.
Blazer donned a sad look. Tears began to form in his old, gray eyes.
Who killed her?
The people of the southern Iron colonies. We were in a local tavern when a few mercenaries recognized us from our wanted posters. Before we knew it, we were surrounded on all sides and we had to fight our way out. We had won, but Mara had been shot in the stomach. Xavier, I had never felt so many emotions hit me at once when Mara's heart stopped beating. The feeling was almost unexplainable. First, there was nothing. You feel nothing. Then, it all happens at once. Doubt sets in. You sit there, holding the person you love, lifeless in your arms. Then the anger. The anger comes out and it's the biggest rush of rage you will ever feel. Pure hatred. I put Mara down and I killed every last one of those Southern Iron bastards. I tore their heads clean from their shoulders and put them on pikes to set an example. Do not mess with a pirate. Especially the last pirates. I haven't built the courage to tell Harley yet. I'm not entirely sure how she'll react.
If you want, I can tell her and take the burden off your hands. She's already pissed as hell at me anyway.
No, it wouldn't be right if she heard it from someone other than me.
I understand.
Blazer wiped his face of tears and changed the subject.
Anyway, let's head out. I don't want to be out too late. Harley worries when I'm not at the ship at night.
Yeah, okay. Let's go.
Thank you for listening to the Galaxy Door Saga Season 1.5 Act 1. The story will continue in Season 1.5 Act 2. Stay tuned.